Okay, let's get back to foreclosures. What do you want to do about them?
Well, like I said, in the foreclosures, we really changed the rules. Now, it wasn't necessarily at the state level that we changed it, but we did change the rules as our governing bodies. We said that we were going to allow more people to be involved in the home buying process, and so we allowed a new kind of mortgage. This is the kind of mortgage I got when I first bought my house, where you had to put 20% down, and then it was a 30-year fix. They had these new mortgages where you could come in and say a stated amount. So that means I claim I make a certain amount of money, but there is no requirements for me to qualify that with any kind of documentation.
No proof of income.
Exactly. And so that's what allowed a lot of investors to get overextended. It allowed a lot of people that probably couldn't afford their mortgages
Give people
to get
goodies,
mortgages.
they'll take them and eat them.
Exactly. And so then we had this cheap money that started to abound, and so if you've got cheap money and you've got a constriction on the supply, you're going to drive up prices, which drove up all these home prices. And then now all of a sudden we've got the adjustable rates, which are happening, and you have the bottom falling out of the market and everybody's losing value on their homes. So I view this as something that the government really kind of allowed to happen by meddling in the rules that had been in place and been there for a while. Now, the banks could have denied participation in this, but everybody's trying to make money, everybody's getting on the bandwagon, and we end up with these problems.
So I get the feeling that you feel that things got loosened up to the point where unqualified buyers were allowed in, and of course once the unqualified buyer is allowed in, he's being set up for failure and possibly a blot on his credit rating that will prevent him from getting further ahead when he might be in better shape.
Yep. So I think it's not the sense where we have to come in with big government-style regulations, but I think it's important that as the state legislature we address some of these issues, and I think that the state of Minnesota has done a pretty good job so far, previously, where they had these concepts of the sheep and the wolf, the realtor and the mortgage bankers. They were always the people who knew how these things worked, and they were supposed to be more conciliatory towards the people that were coming in, first-time home buyers and stuff. So I think we need to get that more well established again, how we used to have it. And these stated mortgage programs, I mean, obviously they're gone because the credit markets have constricted. So,
okay,
we as legislators, I think the key takeaway to this is we need to be attentive to details, and we need to think about the consequences of how we pass bills. If we put out a bill and we change the rules, say allowing more people to get mortgages, or we allow more speculation in markets or something like that, we have to realize that there may be unintended consequences from these things, and we need to think them through a little bit harder. So I think some of the ways that bills get passed in the dark of night, or they're not getting read completely, these are the kinds of things we need to get away from.
I think the rule for me is if you pass a law saying people have a right to be stupid, they will be. It's as simple as that. And having practiced law for 30 years, I think actually the right to stupidity, I think, is the right that many people seem to prize more than any other. Now, what other issues are you interested in, Grant?
Well, taxes is obviously a big concern for everyone this year. We passed a big gas tax increase at a time when people are having a lot of trouble even making ends meet. We've had the dollar has lost a lot of its
If you'd been
value.
in the legislature, you would have voted to sustain the governor's veto?
Absolutely. That was a terrible bill. We don't want to increase the gas tax. And then we've got this current referendum where we're saying we want to allocate a certain amount of money for arts and the, what is it, the wildlife?
That's called boondoggle.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they did some polling recently where they said that people don't support it. And I think that's because everybody's starting to feel in their pocketbook that they're getting constrained. So asking people for another $10 a month or, $10 a week, that's a significant hit. So I think when we start looking at taxes, especially in North Minneapolis and in Minneapolis particularly, we have got a new referendum that's going to be on the bill, or on the ballot, where they're trying to raise another $60 million, and I firmly stand against that. I've looked into the schools, their budgets, and how they're spending their money, and I think that they're not really that accountable. I think that we could, as the state legislature, hold public school districts and the Minneapolis Public School District in particular much more accountable in the way that they're spending their money. So taxes, I think we should decrease them. I think we should try to reduce the amount of spending that that the government is participating in as the only way to create a sustainable model for Minnesota. I don't want to hear about another 3M leaving Minnesota because they think the tax rate's too high. and 3M said that they were leaving because of like a 1% difference in what they wanted to reduce their tax rate. We have got to have a business-friendly climate, or else our economy in Minnesota is not going to stick around.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Yeah, I've told this story before, but since you're here and you probably haven't heard it, I think I'll tell it to you. But I had a friend who was a businessman in South Minneapolis. He had a tile company, and I think he got unionized in a fluke election. But he decided he was getting tired of the union and the taxes in Minnesota, so he moved his business to South Dakota. He let his sons go to South Dakota to run it. He stayed behind because his friends were there. And what he reported to me was that was the best thing he ever did.
Really?
And I'll never forget that. He was singing the praises of Sioux Falls from here to Christmas. They cut, the taxes were low, the regulations were lower, no union to pester him, and he felt he was making a lot more money, doing a lot better, and that's bothered me ever since.
Well, I know that when I was at the state fair just recently, so I helped out at the
Good.
Republican booth a little bit.
I
Was
did
there
that
to
myself. Go ahead.
shake a few hands and ask for a few donations. Got a few, and
Uh-huh.
they had that map up there where they showed the different states and how much their welfare programs cost them. And I looked at the states surrounding us and then our state. I kind of wish on that graph they had blown up the states in proportion to how much they had in their welfare, because Minnesota would have taken up almost the whole of the Midwest because it was so disproportionately large, the amount that we pay out in welfare benefits. And then when I heard, Marty Seifert and Andy Gilday did this study where they said how much of this money is being spent out of state, it just appalled me. It's like, well,
Did they have any maps that showed the number of increased bus trips around the first of the month between here and Michigan?
I would have liked to have seen that. We could have linked in some more things like that, absolutely. Yeah.